In the sciences and in historiography, denialism is the rejection of basic facts and concepts that are undisputed, well supported parts of the scientific consensus or historical record on a subject, in favor of ideas that are radical, controversial, or fabricated. One examples include Holocaust denial, AIDS denialism, 2, and climate change denial. 3. The forms of denialism present the common feature of the person rejecting overwhelming evidence and trying to generate political controversy in attempts to deny the existence of consensus. In psychology, denialism is a person's choice to deny reality as a way to avoid believing in an uncomfortable truth. 6. Denialism is an essentially irrational human behavior that withholds the validation of a historical experience or event when a person refuses to accept an empirically verifiable reality. The motivations and causes of denialism include religion, self-interest, economic, political, or financial and defense mechanisms meant to protect the psyche of the denialist against mentally disturbing facts and ideas. Such disturbance is called cognitive dissonance. 8-9 definition and tactics. Anthropologist Didier Fassin distinguishes between denial, defined as the empirical observation that reality and truth are being denied, and denialism, which he defines as an ideological position whereby one systematically reacts by refusing reality and truth. 10 persons and social groups who reject propositions on which there exists a mainstream and scientific consensus engage in denialism when they use rhetorical tactics to give the appearance of argument and legitimate debate when there is none. 4-5-11. It is a process that operates by employing one or more of the following: 5 tactics to maintain the appearance of legitimate controversy. 4-12 conspiracy theories, dismissing the data or observation by suggesting opponents are involved in a conspiracy to suppress the truth. Cherry picking, selecting an anomalous critical paper supporting their idea or using outdated, flawed, and discredited papers to make their opponents look as though they base their ideas on weak research. Dythelm and M.C. Key 2009 note, denialists are usually not deterred by the extreme isolation of their theories, but rather see it as an indication of their intellectual courage against the dominant orthodoxy and the accompanying political correctness. 4 false experts, paying an expert in the field or another field to lend supporting evidence or credibility. This goes hand in hand with the marginalization of real experts and researchers, moving the goalposts, dismissing evidence presented in response to a specific claim by continually demanding some other, often unfulfillable piece of evidence, also known as shifting baseline. Other logical fallacies, usually one or more of false analogy, appeal to consequences, straw man, or red herring. Common tactics to different types of denialism include misrepresenting evidence, false equivalence, half-truths, and outright fabrication. 13, 14, 15, South African judge Edwin Cameron notes that a common tactic used by denialists is to make great play of the inescapable indeterminacy of figures and statistics. 15, historian Tainer Ackam states that denialism is commonly believed to be negation of facts, but in fact it is in that nebulous territory between facts and truth where such denialism germinates. Denialism marshals its own facts and it has its own truth. 16, focusing on the rhetorical tactics through which denialism is achieved in language, in Alex Gillespie, 2017. Of the London School of Economics has reviewed the linguistic and practical defensive tactics for denying disruptive information. These tactics are conceptualized in terms of 3 layers of defense. Avoiding: the first line of defense against disruptive information is to avoid it. Delegitimizing: the second line of defense is to attack the messenger by undermining the credibility of the source. Limiting: the final line of defense, if disruptive information cannot be avoided or delegitimized, is to rationalize and limit the impact of the disruptive ideas. In 2009, author Michael Specter defined group denialism as when an entire segment of society, often struggling with the trauma of change, turns away from reality in favor of a more comfortable lie. Prescriptive and polemic perspectives: if one party to a debate accuses the other of denialism, they are framing the debate. This is because an accusation of denialism is both prescriptive and polemic. Prescriptive because it carries implications that there is truth to the Denied claim polemic, since the accuser implies that continued denial in the light of presented evidence raises questions about the other's motives. 10. Edward Skidelsky, a lecturer in philosophy at Exeter University, writes that an accusation of denial is serious, suggesting either deliberate dishonesty or self-deception. The thing being denied is, by implication, so obviously true that the denier must be driven by perversity, malice, or willful blindness. He suggests that by the introduction of the word denier into further areas of historical and scientific debate, one of the great achievements of the Enlightenment, the liberation of historical and scientific inquiry from dogma, is quietly being reversed. 19. Some people have suggested that because denial of the Holocaust is well known, advocates who use the term denialist in other areas of debate may intentionally or unintentionally imply that their opponents are little better than Holocaust deniers. 2021, however, Robert Gallo et al. Defended this latter comparison, stating that AIDS denialism is similar to Holocaust denial, since it is a form of pseudoscience that contradicts an immense body of research. Politics and science. Climate change denial, also global warming denial, is a form of science denial characterized by rejecting, refusing to acknowledge, disputing, or fighting the scientific consensus on climate change, which is based on extensive and diverse evidence. Those promoting denial commonly use rhetorical tactics to give the appearance of a scientific controversy where none exists. 24-25 climate change denial includes raising unreasonable doubts about the extent to which climate change is caused by humans, its effects on nature and human society, and understating the costs of climate change adaptation while overstating the costs of mitigating it. 26, 27, 28, 170 to 173 to a lesser extent, climate change denial can also be implicit when people accept the science but fail to reconcile it with their belief or action. 27. Several studies have analyzed these positions as forms of denialism. Several 691 to 698 pseudoscience or propaganda. 31. 351 AIDS denialism is the denial that the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, is the cause of acquired immune deficiency syndrome. AIDS 34. AIDS denialism has been described as being among the most vocal anti-science denial movements. 35. Some denialists reject the existence of HIV, while others accept that the virus exists but say that it is a harmless passenger virus and not the cause of AIDS. Insofar as denialists acknowledge AIDS as a real disease, they attribute it to some combination of recreational drug use, malnutrition, poor sanitation, and side effects of antiretroviral medication rather than infection with HIV. However, the evidence that HIV causes AIDS is scientifically conclusive. 36, 37, and the scientific community rejects and ignores AIDS denialist claims as based on faulty reasoning, cherry picking, and misrepresentation of mainly outdated scientific data, with the rejection of these arguments by the scientific community. AIDS denialist material is now spread mainly through the internet. Thabo Mbeki, former president of South Africa, embraced AIDS denialism, proclaiming that AIDS was primarily caused by poverty. About 365,000 people died from AIDS during his presidency. It is estimated that around 343,000 premature deaths could have been prevented if proper treatment had been available. 3940, the term COVID-19 denialism or merely COVID denialism refers to the thinking of those who deny the reality of the COVID-19 pandemic. 42, at least to the extent of denying the scientifically recognized COVID mortality data of the World Health Organization. The claims that the COVID-19 pandemic has been faked, exaggerated, or mischaracterized are pseudoscience. Some famous people who have engaged in COVID-19 denialism include Elon Musk, 40, religious President Donald Trump, religious belief President Bolsonaro. Religious beliefs may prompt an individual to deny the validity of the scientific theory of evolution. Evolution is considered an undisputed fact within the scientific community and in academia, where the level of support for evolution is essentially universal, yet this view is often met with opposition by biblical literalists. 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, the alternative view is often presented as a literal interpretation of the book of Genesis's creation myth. Many fundamentalist Christians teach creationism as if it were fact under the banners of creation science and intelligent design. Beliefs that typically coincide with creationism include the belief in the global flood myth, geocentrism, and the belief that the Earth is only 6,000 to 10,000 years old. These beliefs are viewed as pseudoscience in the scientific community and are widely regarded as erroneous. 55, the superseded belief that the Earth is flat and denial of all of the overwhelming evidence that supports an approximately spherical Earth that rotates around its axis and orbits the Sun persists into the 21st century. Modern proponents of flat Earth cosmology or flat earthers refuse to accept any kind of contrary evidence, dismissing all space flights and images from space as hoaxes and accusing all organizations and even private citizens of conspiring to hide the truth. They also claim that no actual satellites are orbiting the Earth, that the International Space Station is fake, and that these are lies from all governments involved in this grand cover up. Some even believe other planets and stars are hoaxes. Adherents of the modern flat Earth model propose that a dome shaped firmament encloses a disc shaped Earth. They may also claim, after Samuel Rowbotham, that the Sun is only 3,000 miles, 4,800 kilometers above the Earth, and that the Moon and the Sun orbit above the Earth rather than around it. Modern flat earthers believe that Antarctica is not a continent but a massive ice floe with a wall 150 feet, 46 meters, or higher, which circles the perimeter of the Earth and keeps everything, including all the ocean's water, from falling off the edge. Flat earthers also assert that no one is allowed to fly over or explore Antarctica despite contrary evidence. According to them, all photos and videos of ships sinking under the horizon and of the bottoms of city skylines and clouds below the horizon revealing the curvature of the Earth have been manipulated, computer generated, or somehow faked. Therefore, regardless of any scientific or empirical evidence provided, flat earthers conclude that it is fabricated or altered in some way when linked to other observed phenomena such as gravity, sunsets, tides, eclipses, distances, and other measurements that challenge the flat Earth model. Claimants replace commonly accepted explanations with piecemeal models that distort or simplify how perspective, mass, buoyancy, light, or other physical systems work. 56. These piecemeal replacements rarely conform with each other, finally leaving many flat Earth claimants to agree that such phenomena remain mysteries and more investigation is to be done. In this conclusion, adherents remain open to all explanations except the commonly accepted globular Earth model, shifting the debate from ignorance to denialism. There is a scientific consensus, 58, 59, 60, 61, that currently available food derived from genetically modified crops GM poses no greater risk to human health than conventional food, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, but that each GM food needs to be tested on a case-by-case basis before introduction. 67, 68, 69, nonetheless, members of the public, are much less likely than scientists to perceive GM foods as safe. 70, 71, 72, 73. The legal and regulatory status of GM foods varies by country, with some nations banning or restricting them and others permitting them with widely differing degrees of regulation. 74, 75, 76, 77 psychological analyses indicate that over 70% of GM food opponents in the U.S. are absolute in their opposition, experience disgust at the thought of eating GM foods, and are evidence insensitive. Statin denialism is a rejection of the medical worth of statins, a class of cholesterol-lowering drugs. Cardiologist Stephen Nissen at Cleveland Clinic has commented, "We are losing the battle for the hearts and minds of our patients to websites." 79, promoting unproven medical therapies. Harriet Hall sees a spectrum of statin denialism ranging from pseudoscientific claims to the understatement of benefits and overstatement of side effects, all of which is contrary to the scientific evidence. Mental illness denial or mental disorder denial is where a person denies the existence of mental disorders. 81 serious analysts, 82, 83, as well as pseudoscientific movements question the existence of certain disorders. A minority of professional researchers see disorders such as depression from a sociocultural perspective and argue that the solution to it is fixing a dysfunction in society, not in the person's brain. 83, some people may also deny that they have a mental illness after being diagnosed, and certain analysts argue this denialism is usually fueled by narcissistic injury. 84, anti-psychiatry movements such as Scientology promote some mental illness denial by having alternative practices to psychiatry. Election denial is baseless rejection of the outcome of a fair election. Since the 2020 United States presidential election, there has been an ongoing narrative asserting that it was fraudulent. Similar events have occurred in different countries. Brazil in 2022, when former President Jair Bolsonaro, after his defeat in the 2022 Brazilian general election, questioning the accuracy of the country's electronic voting system. 85 in the 2021 Peruvian general election, presidential candidate Keiko Fujimori alleged fraud and irregularities in the voting count, which were disproved by election authorities and international observers. 86, 87, historiography, historical negationism, the denialism of widely accepted historical facts, is a major source of concern among historians, and it is frequently used to falsify 889 or distort accepted historical events. In attempting to revise the past, negationists are distinguished by the use of techniques inadmissible, improper. Historical discourse, such as presenting known forged documents as genuine, inventing ingenious but implausible, reasons for distrusting genuine documents, attributing conclusions to books and sources that report the opposite, manipulating statistical series to support the given point of view, and deliberately mistranslating texts. Some countries, such as Germany, have criminalized the negationist revision of certain historical events, while other countries take a more cautious position for various reasons, such as the protection of free speech. Others mandate negationist views, such as California, where school children have been explicitly prevented from learning about the California genocide. Armenian genocide denial is the negationist and racist claim that the Ottoman Empire and its ruling party, the Committee of Union and Progress CUP, did not commit genocide against its Armenian citizens during World War I, a crime documented in a large body of evidence and affirmed by the vast majority of scholars. 94-95, the perpetrators denied the genocide as they carried it out, claiming that Armenians in the Ottoman Empire were resettled for military reasons, not exterminated. In its aftermath, incriminating documents were systematically destroyed. Denial has been the policy of every government of the Ottoman Empire's successor. State, the Republic of Turkey, as of 2025 update. Borrowing arguments used by the CUP to justify its actions, Armenian genocide. Denial rests on the assumption that the deportation of Armenians was a legitimate state action in response to a real or perceived Armenian uprising that threatened the empire's existence during wartime. Deniers assert that the CUP intended to resettle Armenians, not kill them. They claim the death toll is exaggerated or attribute the deaths to other factors, such as a purported civil war, disease, bad weather, rogue local officials, or bands of Kurds and outlaws. The historian Ronald Grigor Suni summarizes the main argument as there was no genocide and the Armenians were to blame for it. 96. A critical reason for denial is that the genocide enabled the establishment of a Turkish nation state, recognizing it would contradict Turkey's founding myths. 97. Since the 1920s, Turkey has worked to prevent recognition or even mention of the genocide in other countries. It has spent millions of dollars on lobbying, created research institutes, and used intimidation and threats. Denial, according to Donald Bloxham, is usually accompanied by rhetoric of Armenian treachery, aggression, criminality, and territorial ambition. 98. Denial affects Turkey's domestic policies and is taught in Turkish schools. Some Turkish citizens who recognize the genocide have faced prosecution for insulting Turkishness. Turkey's century-long effort to deny the genocide sets it apart from other historical cases of genocide. Holocaust denial refers to the denial of the murder of 5 to 6 million Jews by the Nazis in Europe during World War II. In this context, the term is a subset of genocide denial, which is a form of politically motivated denialism. 102, 103. Nakba denial refers to attempts to downgrade, deny, and misdescribe the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians during the Nakba 104, in which 4/5 of all Palestinians were driven off their lands and into exile. Sonja 105, Sonja Bezerko, president of the Helsinki Committee for Human Rights in Serbia, and Adina Basarevic, the Faculty of Criminalistics, Criminology, and Security Studies of the University of Sarajevo, have pointed to a culture of denial of the Srebrenica massacre in Serbian society taking many forms, and present in particular in political discourse, the media, the law, and the educational system. See also agnotology, anti-environmentalism, barriers to pro-environmental behavior, confirmation bias, bias confirming existing attitudes, cult, group controlled by a leader and or an idea delusion, fixation of holding false beliefs, environmental skepticism, skepticism of environmentalism, euphemism, innocuous word or expression used in place of one that may be found offensive, Gibson's law. Every PhD has an equal and opposite PhD inoculation theory, how people's attitudes can resist change through weak counterargument exposures, list of cognitive biases, obscurantism, practice of obscuring information, philosophy of science, branch of philosophy, pseudo-skepticism, position that appears to be skeptic but is actually dogmatic psychology of climate change denial, red pill and blue pill, metaphor for a choice of truth or illusion, reputation management, influencing, controlling, enhancing, or concealing of an individual's or group's reputation, Voldemort. In spite of this, the number of studies specifically focused on safety assessment of GM plants is still limited. However, it is important to remark that for the first time, a certain equilibrium in the number of research groups suggesting on the basis of their studies that a number of varieties of GM products, mainly maize and soybeans, are as safe and nutritious as the respective conventional non-GM plant, and those raising still serious concerns was observed. Moreover, it is worth mentioning that most of the studies demonstrating that GM foods are as nutritional and safe as those obtained by conventional breeding have been performed by biotechnology companies or associates, which are also responsible of commercializing these GM plants. Anyhow, this represents a notable advance in comparison with the lack of studies published in recent years in scientific journals by those companies. Krimsky, Sheldon, 2015, An Illusory Consensus Behind GMO Health Assessment, Science, Technology, and Human Values, 46, 883 to 914, DOI 10, 1177, 162 trillion, 243 billion, 915 million, 598,381. S2 CID 40,855,100. I began this article with the testimonials from respected scientists that there is literally no scientific controversy over the health effects of GMOs. My investigation into the scientific literature tells another story. And contrast. Panchin, Alexander Y., Tuzikov, Alexander Lust, January 14th, 2016. Published GMO studies find no evidence of harm when corrected for multiple comparisons. Critical Reviews in Biotechnology, 37 to 213 to 217. DOI 1031097300 and 88,551.2. 1,015.1,130,684. ISSN 0738 to 8,551. PMID 26,767,435, S2CID 11,786,594. Here we show that a number of articles, some of which have strongly and negatively influenced the public opinion on GM crops, and even provoked political actions, such as GMO embargo, share common flaws in the statistical evaluation of the data. Having accounted for these flaws, we conclude that the data presented in these articles does not provide any substantial evidence of GMO harm. The presented articles suggesting possible harm of GMOs received high public attention. However, despite their claims, they actually weaken the evidence for the harm and lack of substantial equivalency of studied GMOs. We emphasize that with over 1,783 published articles on GMOs over the last 10 years, It is expected that some of them should have reported undesired differences between GMOs and conventional crops, even if no such differences exist in reality. And AAS, American Association for the Advancement of Science, February 16th, 2006, Statement on the Teaching of Evolution, PDF, trupas.org, archived from the original PDF on February 21st, 2006, retrieved January 1st, 2007. Avedian, Vahan, 2013, Recognition, Responsibility, and Reconciliation, The Trinity of the Armenian Genocide, Europa Ethnica, 70, 3/4, 77 to 86, doi 10, 24,989, 0014 to 2, 1,492, 2013, 34 to 77, ISN 0014 to 2,492, Begley, Sharon, August 13th, 2007, The Truth About Denial, Newsweek, archived from the original on October 21st, 2007. MSNBC single-page version, archived August 20th, 2007. Borowski, Christine, ed. 2006. Denying Science, Nat Med 12.4, Rav 169, doi 10.1038, NEM 0406 to 369, PMID 16,598,265, STU CID 11,166,916, Chetirian Vikin 2015, Open Wounds, Armenians, Turks, and a Century of Genocide, C. Hurst and Company, ISBN 9781 8494 4558-5. Chetirian Vikin 2018a, Censorship, Indifference, Oblivion, the Armenian Genocide and its Denial, Truth, Silence, and Violence in Emerging States, Histories of the Unspoken, Routledge, pp. 188 to 214, ISBN 978 to 1, 351 to 14,112-3. Shorbagian, Lavan, 2016. They brought it on themselves and it never happened. Denial to 1939, The Armenian Genocide Legacy. Palgrave Macmillan, UK, pp. 167 to 182. ISBN 978 to 130, 7 to 56,163-3. Cohen John, June 15th, 2007. HIV/AIDS-truth.org website takes aim at denialists. Science, 316, 5,831, 1,554, 10.1126. Science, 316.5 thousand, 831.1554, PMID 17,569,834, STU CID 30,202,3,809. Colquhoun, David, September 9th, 2009. Trust me, I'm a scientist. BMJ 339, B 3658, doi 10.1136 BMJ D30658, S2 CID 72,546,131, Site Journal CS1 Mate, article number is page number link, Conley Joel, July 10th, 2007. Deniers of Global Warming Harm Us, Seattle Post-Intelligencer, Dadrian, Vahaknen, 2003. The Signal Facts Surrounding the Armenian Genocide and the Turkish Denial Syndrome, Journal of Genocide Research, 5.2, 269 to 279, doi 10, 1,080, 14 trillion, 623 billion, 500, and 20,305,671. S2 CID 71,289,389. Demirel, Kagla, Erickson, Johan, 2020, Competitive Victimhood and Reconciliation, The Case of Turkish-Armenian Relations. Identities, 27,537 to 556. DOI, 10.1080,1,070,200 9 times 2019.16111073. S2 CID 150,456,701. Dixon, Jennifer M., 2018. Dark Pasts, Changing the State Story in Turkey and Japan. Cornell University Press. 42. ISBN 900,017 to 3025-2. Farber Celia, March 2006. Out of Control AIDS and the Corruption of Medical Science. Harper's Magazine. Gallo Robert, Geffen Nathan, Gonsalves Greg, Jeffries Richard, Kuritskas Daniel R. Merkin. Bruce, Morjohn P., Sefrit Jeffrey T., March 25, 2006. Errors in Celia Farber's March 2006 article in Harper's Magazine, AIDS Education Global Information System, archived from the original on December 2, 2008. Go check Fatma Muj, 2015. Denial of Violence, Ottoman Past, Turkish Present, and Collective Violence against the Armenians 1789 to 2009. Oxford University Press. ISBN 978-019 to 933,420-9. Goodman Ellen. February 9, 2007. No change in political climate. The Boston Globe. Gurpinar Dogan, 2016. The Manufacturing of Denial, the Making of the Turkish Official Thesis on the Armenian Genocide between 1974 and 1990. Journal of Balkan and Near Eastern Studies, 18.3, 217 to 240. OI 10. 1,080, 19,448,953. 2016. 1,176,190. 2 CID 148,518,678. Hambling David, September 1st, 2009. Abominable No Men, UK 40 in Times. Archived from the original on November 26th, 2009. Hovannisian, Richard G., 2001. Denial, the Armenian Genocide as a Prototype. Remembering for the Future, the Holocaust in an Age of Genocide. Palgrave Macmillan, UK, pp. 796 to 812. ISBN 978 to 1349 to 66,019-3. IAP, Inter-Academy Panel, June 21st, 2006. IAP Statement on the Teaching of Evolution PDF. Interacademies.net. Archived from the original PDF on November 6, 2009. Retrieved January 1, 2007. Ihrig, Stefan, 2016. Justifying Genocide, Germany and the Armenians from Bismarck to Hitler. Harvard University Press. ISBN 978 to 674 to 50,479-0. James, Clive, October 23, 2009. In Praise of Skepticism. BBC, Kalikman, Seth, November 1st, 2009. How to Spot an AIDS Denialist, New Humanist. London, The Rationalist Association. Kennedy Donald. July 27, 2007. Climate, Game Over. Science, 317, 5,837, 425. DOI 10.1126. Science, 1,147,817. PMI'd, 17,656,688. S2 CID 20,246,619. Kevorkian, Raymond, 2011. The Armenian Genocide, A Complete History. Bloomsbury Publishing, ISBN 9,700 and 8,850. 7,719,300. Kim Richard, March 2, 2007. Harper's publishes AIDS Denialist, The Nation. Archived from the original on September 13, 2012. Maslin Janet, November 4, 2009. Michael Spector fires bullets of data at cozy anti-science in Denialism. New York Times. Monbiot, George, September 19, 2006. The Denial Industry, Guardian Unlimited. Myers, P.Z., June 18, 2006. Ann Coulter, No Evidence for Evolution, Faringula, Science Blogs. Archived from the original on June 22, 2006. Retrieved September 1st, 2007. Editorial Denying Science PDF, Nature Medicine, 12/4/369, 2006. DOI 10.1038, MEM 0, 406 to 369. PMID 16,598,265. S2 CID 11,166,916. Archived from the original PDF on September 28,